Monster with Frankenstein in 1931. Now, Leonard Maltin takes us inside a dark and dusty warehouse in search of the tools they used to give him a jolt. Leonard?
Well, Bob, over the past few years, much of Hollywood's history has gone on the auction block as costumes, props, and other priceless memorabilia have been sold to the highest bidder. Well, now a unique piece of Movie-ana is looking for a home, but it wouldn't just fit in anywhere. You see, it really belongs in the laboratory of a mad scientist.
Let's have one final test. Throw the switches.
It was 62 years ago that a futuristic laboratory full of electrical gizmos was built for the classic horror movie Frankenstein. It was expanded on for the 1935 sequel, The Bride of Frankenstein, and has since done service in some 60 to 70 other movies in one form or another.
The Bride of Frankenstein.
And here is that same laboratory today, still smoking and still as amazing and awe-inspiring as ever. That's partly because it wasn't just a collection of props. It was a series of sophisticated electrical devices that fit the story of Frankenstein to a T, as its current owner explains.
In the early days of medical science, the people felt that electricity was the elixir of life and it could absolutely cure anything. A lot of it has been designed around old electrical medical equipment. And for monster making, that's what you needed, a lot of electricity.
The lab was built by the late Ken Strickfaden, who proudly showed it off at a convention in 1983, the year he died. Strickfaden didn't trust a studio to save his beloved laboratory, so he did it himself.
That's all it does.
The equipment may be old, but some of its effects have never been duplicated, which is why it's still in demand by movie makers. Some of its sounds were adapted for the laser sword in Star Wars, and some of its sparks even turned up in Terminator 2. But its ultimate reuse came in the Mel Brooks, Gene Wilder horror parody, Young Frankenstein, in 1974. The film was unique in one other way. It gave Strickfaden screen billing for the first time in his life. Credit long overdue for an incredible invention. And now, after long service, its current owner, Strickfaden's longtime colleague, feels it's time for the lab to retire.
I would like to find a museum-like setting for this equipment to rest in. The equipment's become fragile, the equipment is brittle, but it still works, and it really deserves a good home.
It certainly does. After all, this is a piece of movie history that, like the monster it spawned, is still alive.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Oh, an incredible moment, such a great film. If you've never seen Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein or any of the more recent films that I showed in that piece, they're all available on home video and, needless to say, well worth seeing. As for the equipment, now, it's now on the auction block, and the minimum asking price is $1 million. I don't know how you put a price tag on something like that. It's literally priceless. But what worries me is that at that kind of price, it'll go to a private collector, somebody wealthy who's a fan, instead of being in a museum where it really belongs. Something like the upcoming Hollywood Entertainment Museum. That would be the right place for it, I think.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Something that should be shared by everyone, I think. It still seems remarkable to me, though, that to make Terminator 2 in the 90s, they have to go back 60 years to find the right equipment to make the scenes work.
Well, it was just one element, of course, in that state-of-the-art special effects movie, but it was an element they needed, and they had to go back to the original. I guess it's true that some things just can't be duplicated.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed that piece. Thanks, Leonard.
Yeah, me too.